Welcome back to another week on the trail. I'm Doc, and this is the John Freakin' Muir Pod. Just a quick reminder, if you are enjoying the podcast, take just a minute and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you're not enjoying the pod, well, just go ahead and keep that to yourself. This week, I'm excited to welcome to the pod Jay and Michelle Wilson. Jay is the author of the JMT memoir, Elevation Gain, and the two of them are here to talk about the book, their adventures on the trail, and how they got involved in the thru hiking cult. Welcome to the pod, you two.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
Absolutely. What part of the country are you in right now?
We live in Iowa.
That's right. What part of Iowa?
Southwest Iowa. Out in the country, we have a little acreage. We both sort of started here in this neck of the woods when we were young, and I think we both moved around a little bit when we were little, but when we grew up, we eventually wound up here. Long walkabout around the country. We lived in Arizona, we lived in North Carolina, and eventually we kind of moved back to sort of finish our boys off free range style. And so we bought an acreage out in the country in Southwest Iowa.
Very nice. For those keeping track at home in your JFM pod trivia, Doc was born in Iowa. He was born in Waterloo, Iowa, and he still has some family out there. My dad's parents were raised in and grew up in and lived in Dike, Iowa, tiny town. One stoplight, if you blink, you miss when you drive through that town. So great
Nice.
State
I
of
didn't
Iowa.
know we have that connection. I got friends in Waterloo for sure.
Nice.
Know when you're coming back.
So have you guys listened to the podcast before?
We have a little bit, yeah.
Nice. Okay, so you may be familiar with a regular feature we have on the pod, which is called the Pro Tip Insight of the Week. So that is I'm going to turn to you at the end of the episode. I'm going to ask you to share your pro tip insight of the week, and that is a bit of advice, some insight, some kind of recommendation that is going to make our listeners' next adventure out in the wild that much more memorable and epic. So don't be surprised when I turn to you and ask you that question when we get to the end here.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. Another thing we've started here is the must bring gear review. And so I know that in your book, Elevation Gain, you have a couple of appendices in the back, and you talk about gear, the gear that you brought, and some gear recommendations. And so I want to put you on the spot right here, right at the beginning, and ask you, when you go out, what is your must-bring gear review? Or your must-bring gear? What do you have to have with you? And do you have a particular brand that you prefer over others?
Well, I would say when we were training for the JMT, and we did the JMT in 2019, I sort of discovered Injinji toe socks and fell in love with them. Michelle does not like them. But I think we both kind of grooved on the Ultra Lone Peak trail running shoes. And so, I mean, I would definitely say that sort of foot combo. And then the other thing I would specifically say, like foot care that I did not take on the JMT that we did take on a hike this year, would be like, what's that ball called?
It's called a yoga tune-up ball. It's a soft, squishy massage ball that's made specifically for rolling out your fascia. So great for your feet.
I would say that, or at the very least a tennis ball if you got one of those laying around. It doesn't weigh very much, and if you actually take the time to roll out your feet at the end of every hiking day, holy smokes, it makes a difference, I believe.
Yeah, I think that is an excellent recommendation. As our listeners know from my own experiences that I've shared in the past, if your feet are in pain on a hike, there is nothing worse, because that's all you can think about when you're on the trail is just the poor condition of your feet. I made the transition from boots to trail runners, and it made a world of difference. And I love the Ultras; those are fantastic. So great recommendation.
Yeah. Did you wear insoles in your Ultras?
I did not. I have not. Is that a game changer?
I modified mine. I took, Oboz is pretty proud of their proprietary insoles, and I cut off the sort of back 3/4 or 2/3 of it or something like that, and taped it together, I guess you would say, with the toe box part of the Ultra. And so I call them my Frankensoles, and that helped quite a bit. I feel like I need a little bit of arch support that the factory insoles didn't give you. So, and it kind of depends on how much weight you got on your back. You got to pay attention to that too. Like, I don't think you could wear ultras with 40 pounds on your back and be happy for very long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's talk about gear since you brought it up. What did your kit look like, and how much you guys carrying? What was your base weight on the trail?
I weighed everything the day before we left our house, and I think I had 42 pounds and Michelle had, I want to say 35.
Yeah.
Now that included like 2 days of sort of travel food. Michelle can't do gluten or dairy. And so when we travel, like, we have to be extra careful. So we sort of brought travel snacks and food for our flight to Reno and our shuttle down. And then we spent a night at elevation. We hit the trail at Horseshoe Meadows. And so we had a couple of extra days food. I suppose when I hit the trail, I was below 40 pounds. And so, yeah, we had a tent was a Nemo Dagger 2P. We both kept our old sleeping bags that we've had for 100 years. I have a Kelty. I have no idea what the model is. I've had it for so long. It's been great. It's a 30 degree. Yours is a 20 degree Sierra Design. Something.
Mm-hmm. Osprey packs.
Nice. I saw a snout dip into the picture there. Do we have an extra guest in Iowa?
Yeah, this is Tucson. She's our yellow lab. She's 10, and so she's very accustomed to being nearby us. So she's like, "We're on the podcast today. Let's go. I'm up on the couch with you."
Nice. There she is. Hi, Tucson.
Can you say hi?
Look at Doc. Say hey to Doc.
What a cutie. That's fantastic. I have a dog in the background too. My wife just left to run some errands, so he may get a little barky here in the background. We'll see. His name's Peter. He's a little guy. So
apologize in advance both ways.
Okay. Very good. All right. Hey, I want to talk about how we met, and that was my usual way of scouting talent for the podcast here, and that's looking at great Instagram feeds and finding people who are in the middle of adventures and reaching out to them and seeing if they'd be willing to share their adventure. And I found you, Jay, on an Instagram account called Pablo Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
And asked you if you'd be willing to come on and share your book that you've written and some of your adventures, and you guys agreed. And so thank you very much for that. But I do have to ask, I know you directed me to take a look, but I didn't get a chance to. Okay. What is the significance of Pablo Fahrenheit?
Yeah, so if you follow my Instagram feed, it's not all just backpacking photos. It's probably more beer and, I don't know, tacos and smoking meat and whatnot. But yeah, so I work in the beer business by day. I've planned a lot of festivals and various events and stuff, but one of the main events that I've been doing for like 5 years, it's my own sort of personal baby, is it's called the Drinking Pants Pageant. I started wearing goofy pants at bars and beer festivals and stuff like that a number of years ago, and I found it to be a really good way. Like, on one hand, I'm wild and crazy and extroverted. On the other hand, I'll sit here and just happily talk to the two of us. If we went to a bar, it'd just be you and me sitting in a corner quietly all night long. But when I started wearing pants, I started meeting people, and they, I don't know. So we decided, I was involved in helping to kind of grow and improve Des Moines Beer Week, celebrating the beer of Des Moines and Iowa in general. And so we came up with the idea. I really just wanted to like promote this hashtag Drinking Pants, just to be silly and have fun. So we rented a venue. We rented a catwalk. We encouraged all of our friends to show up and do this pageant, and everybody just wears the craziest pants they can, and we meet each other. It's like the greatest icebreaker on the planet. And so we've been doing it for like 5 years. 2020 was supposed to be like this great year for us. We were turning 5 and introducing our line of pants that we were selling, our Fahrenheit and Sons pants. But so Pablo Fahrenheit is my stage name.
Like and alter ego. You have a trail name and a stage name.
Yes.
And a regular
name.
And
some people call me Jay. Yeah.
Very good. Pablo Fahrenheit, the stage name. And how did you arrive at Pablo Fahrenheit?
Well, I guess the second year we were doing the pageant, I started to refer to myself as Mr. Fahrenheit, which is really just taken from the song by Queen. I'm a Freddie Mercury fan. We created the Drinking Pants Hall of Fame the second year of the pageant, and we inducted him and David Bowie and some others in the initial crowd of, and so now we've got 4 classes. I think we have 16 people in the Drinking Pants Hall of Fame right now. And so I took Mr. Fahrenheit from Queen. Pablo, when our oldest son Jake was born, Michelle was like, you know, drugged up or worn out or whatever, and the nurse comes in with the paperwork, here, name your kid, and I'm like, okay, Pablo it is, or something, you know. And I didn't actually do that, but I was just trying to get a rise out of her. But I always thought, oh geez, we should have named him Pablo, that would have been great. So I just had Pablo in the back of my back pocket, and thought, instead of naming a kid that, eventually I took it for the stage came up, and it's like, oh, now I have friends that are professional wrestlers. I'm like, how'd you come up with that? That's great. So you know, if professional wrestlers are asking you about your name, you know it's a good one.
Now there is a lot to unpack right there. I've got some questions.
Oh no, we're going down that road.
Not your average backpacker.
Sorry, before we get to the trail, this is important information we need to cover here. So number one, drinking pants, outrageous pants, funny pants. I mean, what can you describe? What are some of the pairs of pants that you've worn or that others have worn that have broken the ice, as you say?
Oh man, he's wearing some now.
Oh my, yeah.
Oh my.
Polka dots, stripes.
Paisley.
Yeah, I guess it's a podcast, so people at home didn't see that. You know, polka dots, paisley, stripes.
Unicorns.
I shop in the women's department more than the men's department by far.
They're a little more fashionable, so I can understand.
Totally, yeah. Like women can wear cool pants on a Tuesday and just get complimented, and a guy goes to work on a Tuesday with, you know, stripes on. People looking at him like he's crazy.
Now, Freddie Mercury and David Bowie have been inducted into the Drinking Pants Hall of Fame. What is the criteria, and how do I get that distinction?
You know, it's kind of a benevolent dictatorship. I really kind of just decide. I do ask like former pageant champions, some of my, you know, friends and helpers within the planning group of the pageant. But mostly it's just kind of this benevolent dictatorship where I honor the people that have influenced me. So, you know, this year we finally inducted Steven Tyler, and last year we got David Lee Roth in there.
Oh my gosh, these names! This is right up my alley.
Rock stars and stuff, you know. But
what about the curling team?
We got we got the Norwegian curling team in last year. Those guys had the loudmouth pants. Who else? Somebody else. Oh, Nudie Cohn. Yeah, I was gonna say Nudie Cohn, who designed all the suits, like, you know, like Graham Parsons and the Flying Burrito Brothers, and all those crazy tricked out suits and pants and stuff. He did some Elvis stuff. So we got him inducted. Lady Miss Cure from Delight. If you remember her cat suit back in the Heart days.
Yep.
Actually, it's been kind of cool. Like, I've exchanged emails with Lady Miss Cure, and she's a real person that'll hit reply.
Very cool. So can I find the application online or the nomination form? I want to nominate myself. I'll wear some crazy pants.
Really? Well, let me see some photos. Far away. I caught you on the internet with the pants part, but I'll be looking out for that now.
Very good. Very good. Let's talk about beer a little bit. If you don't mind, Michelle, if you can just bear with us a little bit. This is an important topic here. So
I'm used to it. It's all right.
Okay. Very good. So Jay, and do you have a trail name?
My trail name is Cheers.
Oh, that's right. Cheers.
I work in the beer industry. I say cheers a lot. Everybody in the beer industry says cheers a lot, I think. And all of a sudden it became even more noticeable. Like, Michelle looks at me funny if we're at the grogrocery store and I tell a 15-year-old checkout girl cheers as I'm leaving or whatever. But it's like the thing that pops out of your head.
Yeah, I really, that resonated with me. That's one of many things that resonated with me in your book, because I did an interview with Keith Foskett, trail name Fozzie, who wrote The Last Englishman, a PCT memoir about his 2012 hike. And he's English, and he used cheers a whole lot. And it stuck with me. And so now I sign off on all my communications with cheers. And so I thought that was really cool. And then Michelle, what was your trail name? I read it last night, and I can't remember exactly what it was.
Yeah, coconut.
Coconut. That's right. Coconut. Cheers and coconut. Very good. Okay. Cheers. Cheers. Like the bar in the
Yeah.
TV show about the bar in Boston. So
Yep.
very appropriate. What do you have a preference for style of beer?
I like both kinds of beer, highfalutin and lowfalutin. Uh, I don't know. I like stouts and porters a lot. I like Belgian beer a lot. I like good, clean lagers. I like a little bit of everything. I'll drink an IPA. I know they're real popular. I'll drink. I order a stout first. I order a Belgian beer first.
Very good. I'm an IPA guy, so
Good deal. Good stuff.
yep.
A lot of
For
good stuff
sure.
out there.
For sure. All right, so let's do a little background on the two of you. How did you two meet? Let's go way back.
Yeah. So we met, we were actually like in a college like journalism class together on like the student newspaper. And my parents and Jay's grandparents were like back alley neighbors in this little tiny town in Iowa. So we met just as acquaintances in the college newspaper room, forever ago. And then Jay transferred to a different college, but when he would come back to visit his grandparents, we would just kind of say hello. And then one January, I don't know, probably close to, I don't know how many years ago, not quite 30, but a long time ago. We just kind of hit it off and the rest is history. We actually had our 25th wedding anniversary on the trail. You may have read that.
I did read that. Congratulations.
Yeah.
So how did he ask you out for the first time?
It was really not like, it was like, do you want to go to this barbecue that my friend is having? So it was like really just like a friend kind of thing, like this, small town Iowa barbecue, not like and it was really just kind of a friend thing. But anyway.
It was a Sunday night. It was
Sunday night barbecue with
on
these
Sunday nights.
guys.
We had this kind of tradition of just buying a steak that we couldn't really afford, and instead of drinking 700 beers, we just have 2 or 3 beers and be sophisticated and have a steak and 2 beers or whatever. And I'd say, come on.
Invite a girl over.
Yeah. I think it was the night before I was going back to school.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So Cheers was slow playing it, and the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Worked out well.
Very good. Do you have a good proposal story?
I think we talked about it on the phone.
Yeah,
April Fool's Day.
Yeah, we had like this like long. No, we were in person on April Fool's Day, but we had been talking about it. Like we had, even though we knew each other, we had kind of a long distance relationship for the first, I don't know, 5 or 6 months. And so like all these, it was before cell phones really, like all these long distance phone calls. And yeah, we both just knew. And so, yeah, we had like this phone call that we're kind of like, what do you think about, I don't even know how we worded it.
I remember the wording was something like institutions.
Yes.
How do you feel about institutions? Like marriage. That was the combo. That was that, and that was like, oh, whoops.
So the English major was, playing with.
Yeah.
Cheers, you romantic, you talking about institutions and all.
I know, barbecues and institutions really pulled me in.
It worked, right? So
it worked. That's right. Yep.
Very good. So you mentioned English major, and I think we talked a little bit about yoga. What are your full-time jobs? What are your regular jobs that help finance your gear acquisitions and your hiking trips?
I work in the beer industry. I've been working for the guild for the Iowa Brewers Guild for the last 6 years or so, and I actually just kind of transitioned out of there sort of late summer, and I'm in the midst of helping a startup go, and I'm gonna brew beer. I'm gonna be the head brewer at a little brewery in Preston, Iowa.
Ah, congratulations.
I'm sort of transitioning, but I'm there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, for a long time, I worked in the nonprofit world, nonprofit and government workforce related, and did that for a long time. And then after my own like health and wellness challenges, I, found a lot of ways that helped me to feel better and was so passionate about it that I wanted to to go back to school, go back to nutrition school, and help other people. So I actually, well, I have a couple of things. I still work in the nonprofit world part-time, and then I have my own business where I do wellness coaching and consultations, group coaching with people, wellness programs, and yeah, yoga.
And what is your Instagram account?
It's Radiant Wellness Solutions.
Because soon after I reached out to Jay on Pablo Fahrenheit started following the John Freaking Muir Pod Instagram account, and then shortly after, you followed me as well from that account, and I put two and two together and figured it was Jay's better half. So
yes, these Iowa people.
Very good. Now, where did you guys grow up? Did you guys grow up in Iowa?
By and large, southwest Iowa. My stepdad was in the Army, so I hit Texas and Tennessee for a little while, and we kind of bounced back and forth between Iowa and
Arizona. Yeah, my mom's family's all from
Iowa.
But yeah, mostly Iowa. We both kind of lived in a couple different locations around, but mostly Iowa. Yeah, not a lot of summits in Iowa.
Yeah, I talked to Brittany Woodrum, nickname or trail name Bert, who, as part of her COVID relief fundraising efforts, she climbed all 58 of Colorado's 14ers. And I imagine there's not too many 14ers in Iowa.
Yeah, like none.
Now, were you guys only children or siblings? How did that look?
I think it depends on how you count them. For me, my parents divorced and then remarried, and my mom had another, and my dad had three more, and so I grew up mostly in my mom's house, so I had a half sister, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah, Jay, or cheers, a lot of connections here, because I share that same experience. I was an only child. Parents got divorced. This is more John Freaking Muir trivia, by the way. Parents got divorced, and in the span of about a year and a half, 2 years, I had 3 stepbrothers on one side and 2 stepsisters on the other side. So it went from, just me to a whole lot of others in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
How about you, Michelle?
Yeah, I would say very similar. I have a brother that's 2.5 years younger than me. I have a stepbrother and stepsister, and I have a brother and sister on my mom's side that are about 18 and 20 years younger than me. So super fun and interesting family dynamics.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So how did the two of you get introduced to the outdoors? Was this a childhood hobby? Did you guys go on backpacking trips with your families, or camping, car camping? How did this all kind of arise?
For me, it's mostly car camping, fishing, and hiking, whether that was with my mom, whether that was with my dad, or my grandfather on my mom's side. Not so much backpacking. That all came a little later. But yeah, lots of outdoors activities.
Yeah. Similar. Our family did more car camping, and as a kid, I remember we would go canoeing and boating. We had a boat. My grandparents had a cabin up in the mountains above Tucson, and so we would do some hiking up there and just enjoying the outdoors. So mostly car camping, some hiking, Girl Scouts, that kind of fun stuff.
Okay. Right. Girl Scouts. Now, I always like to talk to our guests and find out, when was that moment, if you can remember the moment where the whole concept of putting everything on your back that you're going to need and departing on a trailhead and being out there for days, sometimes weeks at a time, out in the dirt, roughing it, foot pain, all kinds of hardship, just to be able to experience those moments of extreme beauty and glory and exaltation out there. Do you remember when that conversation entered your life, when you decided, hey, it would be a good idea to go backpacking?
Yeah, probably 2 different things. I feel like I know what yours is, but
I know what.
Okay. Yeah, I think he got hit the bug, caught the bug before I did. I mean, I loved being outside, but we had done a short little backpacking trip out in Colorado with Jay's uncle, just kind of a quick overnighter, Rocky Mountain National Park, and that was great. But we had our boys were like junior high age with external frames, and it was kind of miserable for them, and therefore miserable for their mother. But I think for me, we loved the documentary Mile and a Half, And I think when I watched that and just thought like, I think we could do this. Like, I think we could do this too. So for me, that was my moment where I thought backpacking might actually be something that I would enjoy. Even though like I did cross country running in high school and, you know, liked being outside and liked hiking, I never really thought backpacking was, you know, I don't know if I was intimidated by the idea of like getting all the gear. Like that seemed like a big deal to figure out all the gear you needed, but mile and a half was the moment for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
So for me, it would be flashback a few years. We had been married for a couple years anyway. So I taught English on the Navajo reservation for a couple of years right out of college. We were able to hike and explore all over the place out there, and that was a whole lot of fun. We moved to North Carolina, took a job working in a group home, working direct care as teaching parents, which we did for like 4.5 years, and then kind of eventually moved into other roles. When we first moved there, we went up to the office, the administrative office, to kind of get shown around. And our new coworker, Karen, had an Appalachian Trail map going up and down her file cabinet. Her son Ross was through hiking the AT that year. And I was like, whoa. And so every time that we go up to drop off paperwork or, you know, make copies or whatever at the central office, I would check Ross's progress and see where he was. And I was like, I want to do that. But I was working in social work, so you don't make good money. We had like one year old kid at that time with another sort of planned and or possibly on the way. I don't remember exactly. And it just seemed like pretty bad. Don't have 6 months to go goof off like that. So it was always kind of, you know, this great idea was in the back of the mind there, but there was never really a time. And so we just kind of like bit the bullet when, you know, we saw a mile and a half. Our boys were still in high school, but we kind of looked at each other and were like, aha, when these guys are gone, then that is what we'll do. And so at this point, I don't really care about doing the AT at all, but boy, I wanted to do that. And 3 weeks, I can pull that off for sure.
So that would have been like when you first got the bug would have been like 1998. Right. That would have been 1998 to like put that into perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Yep. We've talked about mile and a half on this podcast before. Great documentary.
Yeah.
Inspiration for a lot of people out there. And we watched it several times leading up to our 2015 trek. So fantastic resource. But Jay, I also want to tell you that I feel like we're kindred spirits because I was also an English teacher for a part of my career.
I heard that on one of your recent interviews that you mentioned that.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's right. The trivia came back to me now.
And how old are your sons? You have 2 sons, and how old are they now?
24 and 21. That's how old they are.
And you guys are empty nesters now.
We are. Except for Tucson.
Well,
Tucson the dog.
That's right. And what did you do with Tucson when you guys went on your hike?
Our oldest son took care of her.
Okay.
Yeah, so she got a little 3-week stay at Uncle Jake's house.
Now we're going to talk about your adventure on the JMT. We're going to talk about your book here in a little bit, but you mentioned the AT. Any desire to pursue a longer trail than the JMT?
We talk about this once in a while. I don't have a huge desire to do. I'm not opposed to doing it, but the idea of sort of hopping off trail and hitchhiking to some little town to get like crappy food at a convenience store, like that does not appeal to me. I just want to get out there and be out away from everybody. So like the toughest part of the whole JMT thing, I thought was just like the logistics of getting from our house to the trailhead. Once we were on the trail, life was good. It was all that other stuff. And so like the idea of hopping off and getting a resupply, or worse, buying groceries at a convenience store or a small town grocery, that does not sound like fun to me. And so to do that for 6 months straight, I don't know. If I want to go to a small town grocery store, I'll stay here. I don't know. But I mean, I don't know. If I won the lottery, which I don't play, I'd have plenty of time to take long vacations. And in that case, well, sure, I'd do it.
Michelle, any appeal?
Yeah, you know, we were just talking about this yesterday. And like, which of the Triple Crown would you want to hike if you could? And we both like were saying like, well, if we wanted to hike one, we would, both of us independently chose PCT. Yeah.
I think that's a good choice. We've had some folks on here who have shared their PCT experiences. I think the interview you were referring to, or the episode you were referring to, was with Barney Scout Man and Journeys North. I have just after reading that book, if you haven't read the book, please read the book, because it gives you a really good sense of what the PCT is all about. Just the varied ecosystems and the fact that it goes through the Sierras. I mean, it's, if I had a choice, if I had an opportunity to do one long trail, that would probably be the one as well.
All right.
Yeah, it's terribly beautiful out there. We had a good time living in North Carolina. We spent a lot of times in the mountains of North Carolina hiking. But yeah, that sort of long green tunnel, you know, I'm not too worried about that, but yeah, it would be fun to do for sure. So we'll see what happens. We've got some hikes that we want to do that aren't really that long, but we'll see what happens.
Okay. Well, I need a promise out of you that after you do the PCT and you write your trail memoir, that you come back on and talk about it with us.
Oh, well, that's an easy thing it's an easier thing to agree to that interview than it is to do the hike and write another book, but we'll see what happens. We'll keep it.
Very good. And I was going to ask you about this, and you brought it up, logistics. You know, not all of our listeners are as blessed as I am to live just within a couple hours of the Sierras. And if they're planning on doing a hike in the Sierras or doing the JMT, I mean, there are some serious logistics involved in getting here. And so what did that look like for you guys coming from Iowa?
Yeah.
We flew to Reno, took the shuttle down to Lone Pine, spent a night in a hostel, which we really didn't plan on, but I think I sort of forgot that the shuttle was like 5 or 6 hours. And by the time we got to Lone Pine, it was kind of late to get out to, Alabama Hills, or managed to get to Horseshoe. So we wound up staying in a hostel, and then I guess hitchhiked to get to the trail the next morning. Went out and got our pass, and then hitchhiked, and Rooster picked us up, and Rooster appears a couple of times in the book. And then after we finished the hike, we actually we took the bus to Merced and got on a train. We went to Sacramento, and then we hopped on the California Zephyr, and we rode the train from Sacramento to 20 miles from our house. And so we took a 48-hour train ride to get home, thinking that it would be a good idea to slowly re-engage the normal world, which was a great idea.
It was the best way to re-enter, seriously. I couldn't imagine going into an airport after getting off the trail.
Yosemite Valley was busy enough for me, like going to an airport, oh no. So the train was fun. The train was a nice, easy slide back into normal life, whatever that is.
Wow, that borders on being a pro tip insight of the week right there.
Yeah. Yeah, we totally would do the train again.
For sure.
Yeah.
In fact, I thought about, if I'd have had more time off, I would have just got right back on the train, gone straight back to Sacramento, and just written for 2 days out and 2 days back, 4 days on the train, laptop, and just writing. That would be a great writing trip. So go write your book that way, Doc.
Nice. Now we're going to get into the nitty gritty of the trail here and your book, Elevation Gain, but we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll get into those details. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're talking to Cheers and Coconut about their 2019 JMT thru hike and the resulting memoir that Jay has written, or Cheers has written, called Elevation Gain. So Cheers, tell us a little bit about the impetus for writing Elevation Gain. What did you hope to do? Have you always wanted to write? Has that been a big part of your your world, and what do you want people to get out of the book, Elevation Gain?
Yeah, you know, we talked about the whole English major thing. I've actually written a couple of other books, so it's not like it's the first time I've gone that route. I think this book specifically was, I mean, you're always kind of on the hunt for a good story to tell. And I've also spent some time doing journalism. I spent 5.5 years as a journalist full time. So I've done a lot of writing. In my research to get prepared for the JMT, I spent a lot of time on YouTube like everybody does. I read a lot of books and blogs and gear reviews and stuff like that, but a lot of time on YouTube. And I thought it would be kind of fun. I mean, I take mostly still shots, but I thought it'd be fun to put together a video and sort of like, I don't want to say give back in that way, but like have another perspective out there. And so I was kind of thinking that I would do that. But I also know that I'm more of a still photographer than I just don't get around to shooting video. And while I did a fair amount of that, it occurred to me, why am I fiddling around with stewing about whether I will or won't like blow taking enough footage when I can just write a book? Like that's what I do. And so then I just kind of shifted gears like, okay, yeah, that would be a great idea. This sounds like a really good story. We'll see what happens. You know, I don't know what's going to be like yet, you know. One of us could break a leg or have to get airlifted out, or it could be completely smooth or whatever. So as I was prepping for the trail, I started to just write background information and kind of prep for the first couple of chapters that sort of set the whole thing up. And then we had to take the hike to see what happens. And I was on the trail for a couple of days before I figured out how I wanted to construct it. But what I knew I didn't want to do was I didn't want to have it just be like another chronological telling of the trail, whether that's YouTube or a book or a blog. I didn't want it to just be, you know, day 1, day 2, day 3, quite like that. So I kind of set it up more like the background stuff, which I mentioned. And then I have basically 2 days or 2 chapters in the book. Chapter 3 and chapter 5 take, I don't know, most of our hike, probably from about day 4 to the completion on day 17 to, it hurls us down the trail day by day by day. But it's more, chapter 3 is a day in the life of a through hiker. What does that day look like? And chapter 5, you know, was kind of meant to be, what kind of person is a through hiker? You know, we're the kind of people who don't take baths every day. We're the kind of people that dig a hole and go poop in it every day. And so, and the other little mundane tasks and whatnot. So, and then I took a chapter to talk about what was in my head. I took a, you know, and then some of the after, you know, thoughts. There's sort of social commentary about the state of things now and before and after. It was hard to come back. What do you want? What do I want people to get out of it? I want people to go out there and, if not that trail, some trail. And if it's just a 2-mile hike that's 5 miles from your house, go do a 2-mile hike that's 5 miles from your house, because it's a beautiful thing to do. You don't have to do 250. You don't have to do 2,000 to have a good time and have nature impact you. So I don't care how long your hike is, just go take one.
Yeah, that's a common theme that a lot of our guests talk about, is the impact of the trail and, you know, who they were before and who they were after and what they learned about themselves. Some big questions and big topics there. What did you guys discover about yourselves on the trail?
You want me to go?
Go for it. I keep talking.
You know, I think we both had kind of different motivations and different things that inspire us on the trail. For me, it was a really empowering experience because I hadn't done anything like that physically challenging before. I've had like multiple knee surgeries, and I had to really overcome like a lot of fear in going, like all of these what ifs, which Jay writes about in the book. Took some excerpts from my journal to use in the book, but like I had all these fears of, like, I just had opened up my yoga studio like less than a year before, and was like, oh my gosh, how can I leave my business for 3 weeks? Like, is this crazy? And, you know, a lot of people would be like, oh, you're gonna be with your husband on the trail for 3 weeks? Like, that just sounds like horrible. So I had these like what seemed like irrational fears now, saying them out loud, but at the time, like my head was like exploding with a lot of the fears. And there was a part of me that wanted to go, and there was a part of me that was secretly hoping like, maybe we'll just like let this go for another year. Like maybe he'll like get it out of his system or something, because it won't push my comfort zone, you know? So for me, it just felt really empowering to do the trail. You know, the partnership that we had was really just awesome. It was one of my favorite things about it. Just like we were like this well-oiled machine out there. We didn't really have any moments that were like, I don't know. I had one moment where, I don't know, there were a lot of mosquitoes, you know, and there were mosquitoes, and he was trying to help get a mosquito off the back of my leg with his trekking pole, and I did not appreciate that. I remember just being like, oh, if I say something, it's going to come out really wrong right now. So we just kept hiking. But like that was the one moment in like 250 miles that things got a little just like potentially dicey. And I don't even know if you remember that moment or not.
Yeah, no, I remember that moment.
But yeah.
Well, the thing is, I hike faster than Michelle anyway, but a little ways down the trail, we realized that it would be a lot more efficient if she hiked in front and I hiked behind. Because if I hike in front, I get going too fast, then I stop and wait for her to catch up, and then we take a break, because I've already had a break, but she deserves a break. And then, you know, I just like, the break got really long and inefficient, and then we'd be hanging out at the side and not moving. So if she was going in front, we took far fewer breaks. We stopped at the exact same time. We were ready to go at the exact same time. So it was a lot better for me to hike from behind. And so but I had a hard time not stepping on her back of her feet. And
it's like a kid with those little small grocery carts at the grocery store.
Right, I was the kid with the grocery cart. Yeah.
So. Yeah. Well, couple things. One is that if you guys survived a 250-mile hike together, you guys are forever. That's
right.
There's no hiding. There's no hiding on the trail. I mean, everything is an open book. You can't hide it for 250 miles over the course of how many weeks and you know 24 hours a day. You guys know who each other are, and you guys are happy with that. You guys are forever. So congratulations there.
Yeah.
The other thing is as I was reading your book, there were so many parts that resonated with my own experience. And it was just, it was really joyful to read because, okay, it was like, there are others who go through that same thought process or same procedure or same conversations that we did as we were preparing for the hike and doing the hike. Just as some examples, I'm going to pull from the book. The book opens up and you guys are heading up to Whitney and you're measuring your progress on these switchbacks against how high you are in comparison to Mount Hitchcock across the way. That's exactly what was going through my head as I was working my way up those switchbacks. I'd stop and I'd look and say, okay, I'm a bit higher as I can see across the way there with Mount Hitchcock. So that was so cool. The way you guys approached passes and the way you guys structured where you guys camped. You camped, you know, so that the following day you would get up and over the pass fairly quickly during the early part of the day when you guys were fresh and strong. That was our same approach as well.
Yeah.
That's probably, you know, we picked that up on, you know, the various trail blogs and videos.
Yeah, thanks, YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that you kind of planned everything out in advance and you had, okay, I'm going to camp here and I'm going to camp here. I'm going to camp here. And then you get on the trail and you realize, oh my gosh, that's not going to work out. I've got to make adjustments on the fly and understanding that it's not going to go all according to plan and you have to be flexible in that regard. I think that's also a theme that really resonated with me. Your whole thing about the conversation about, well, it's the only thing we have to do today is walk. All we have to do is hike. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I said that to the two guys that I hiked with leading up to the hike. You know, we have to go 15 miles. We have to go 19 miles. Well, we're just walking, right? That's all we have to do is walk. So it was really fun to see that conversation kind of take place in somebody else's group. So,
yeah.
And I really appreciate all of the insight into just the routines of backpacking, you know, getting into camp and setting up and what it means to, you know, get up in the morning and break camp and, you know, the rest breaks and how long those would seem to drag on at times, and kind of making adjustments. And you know, what is the hiking order? Is it you put your fastest person in front, or you put your slowest person in front? And these are all similar things, all similar conversations that we've had. So I really enjoyed reading the book. It was great.
Cool. I appreciate that. That's good to hear.
So let's talk about some of your adventures from the trail. What were some of the big highlights for you on the JMT, and what'd you take away from it?
Highlights. You mentioned campsites. I would say that a couple of the most beautiful places I've ever been, and certainly ever camped, would be, of course, we're going northbound. We camped at the highest Tyndall Creek crossing just below Forester, and that was a terribly beautiful place. And then Upper Basin just below Mather Pass on the south side. Those places, I mean, and the Upper Basin, we were completely by ourselves. I mean, there wasn't a soul around for miles and miles and miles. And that view to the south is absurd. It's so beautiful. So I would say those are a couple of like visual highlights for me.
For sure. Agreed. Those are really beautiful spots. And
Mirror Pass. My favorite day on the trail was like the day we took Mirror Pass, which was a little bit different. We didn't hit the pass real early in the day. We had 3 or 4 miles of hiking to do to get there, but that whole day was cool, beautiful in a slightly different way. There was some snow and some water on the trail, and so some route finding and stuff. That was really beautiful. That's a highlight day. I thought that was really cool. Sorry, I stepped on you, but I just kept talking.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Feel free to do that. I was just gonna weigh in and say that both of those spots that you had mentioned with just below Forester and just below Mather, we actually experienced those going southbound. But I remember coming over those passes and seeing what you're talking about, seeing those vistas, and just absolutely gorgeous. And, you know, I'm sure my listeners are sick of hearing me say this, but you come back from these hikes and you're so excited because of what you've seen and what you've done, and you try and explain it to other people, and you show them the pictures, and the pictures do not do it justice whatsoever.
Yeah.
I mean, everything's just a little bit, you know, flatter, I guess, in the picture. It's not, you don't get the perspective, and it just doesn't translate.
I had a hard time coming back, and one of the things coming back, people would say, so how was your trip, you know, and I would say, well, did you see the photos I added, you know, on Facebook there? And like, oh yeah, it was really beautiful. I was like, okay, so a picture is worth 1,000 words. These are 1,000,000 word places. And so those pictures were lousy. And I don't even know what to tell. I didn't know, I wasn't really effervescent with my speech. I didn't know what to say. And Michelle would call me rude a couple of times because like, I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, what are you going to do next? I'm like, I don't need to one up myself. Like I just did like I don't need to do 2,000 miles to feel better about myself than this. Like I couldn't talk about it because it was 1,000,000 word place and I only had 1,000 and they were on a photograph, you know?
That is an excellent description. You know, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and these are 1,000,000 word places. That, I don't know how, you obviously are a writer, because that sums it up. I don't know how you could describe it any better than that.
Well, then just like take that the deep sorrow of like, now I'm not there, and now I'm in Southwest Iowa, and none of these people get me, or what, you know. I mean, I had a hard time coming back. This time last year, I had no motivation to do anything. I was fully depressed. But the coolest thing I ever did blew it up for me.
Yeah, I think that is also a common experience, a theme that resonates with a lot of people. Is you get back and, you know, you're not out there anymore, and you've gone from the single purpose of walking and finding the next campsite and eating and you know, filtering water and sleeping. I mean, that's pretty much trail life right there.
Yeah.
And now you've come back to the complexity of civilized life and alarms and appointments and meetings and everything else that goes with that. And it is just so different. And there's a literal depression that falls over people when they come back.
Yeah. So I made it a point to talk about that. You know, I think that's the kind of thing that people should talk about. And so I made it a point to write about that. I wanted to write about pooping on the trail, and I wanted to write about feeling like poop after the trail, you know, and whatever else doesn't get mentioned.
I don't think I had ever heard about like post-trail depression until after we got back and we're having these discussions. Like that had not like crossed in, and he did more research to prep than I did. I'm a lot more into following different hikers and things now and podcasts than I was before, but like that was not in my awareness at all until now.
Mm-hmm. And was it a real thing for you when you got back?
For me?
Yes.
Probably not as bad as Jay. Sounds bad. Not as bad as Jay. Well, I think he writes about this in the book, but I traditionally have had some challenges with depression and anxiety. So it was kind of something that I'm always like on the lookout for and kind of trying to be proactive with. And for me, like walking and being in nature, yoga, breathing, all of those things are parts of my life that help me to be my best self, to kind of stave that off. But I was in kind of, I don't know, not a stupor, but I was in this weird transition zone for about 9 days or so. When we got back, it was just kind of like, it felt really jarring, even though we took the Amtrak nice and slow. It did feel really jarring to come back. And yeah, just all the things that you mentioned, Doc, just all of those things, just like everyday life. And then what is meaning? What is purpose now? And it took, I think he writes about this in the book too, but I had a couple like friends and clients that had some like really life altering things happen. Like I was kind of around my house, like listening to a podcast, doing just kind of whatever, just, you know, trying to let go through the motions. And then I had 3 specific kind of more tragic events that happened with friends or students. And it really shook me awake. I was like, what a second, like this, I am wallowing here about coming back from this beautiful trek. And I have people that are literally facing life and death. And so those specific instances like kind of shook me back awake and like, okay, we're here, let's do what we need to do. And, you know, we'll be all right.
Nice. Now, Cheers, you mentioned a couple of times, so I'm going to go back to it, writing about trail life and the nitty gritty. And you mentioned a couple of times, you know, pooping on the trail. And I think that is one of the big fears out there for first time through hikers or section hikers is, you know, oh my gosh, I've got to, this is going to be a huge difference from, you know, the way I usually operate. I'm going to have to poop on the trail do you have apprehension ahead of time, and how did you guys overcome that? And tell us about how you write about it in the book.
Well, I mean, I'd pooped outside before. I mean, it's not like it was my first time. But, you know, every day on the trail, once you've got that one thing to do every day ticked off your list, you know, it's a burden lifted, you know. The chapter where, you know, I talk about what kind of hikers the way we are or whatever, you know, we talk about poop a lot, you know, or I don't know. How do I write about it? I don't remember. I will tell you that I had to poop on Mount Whitney. And so
horrible.
This is like a bummer. So this is the wag bag territory where, you know, you couldn't dig a hole if you wanted to, and you're not supposed to because there's such traffic up there. And so you got to carry a wag bag, which to my great surprise was like a pretty good sized garbage bag. I mean, I pictured if I needed to use a wag bag, which I hoped I didn't, you know, I figured it was going to be like a tiny little, you know, 1/4 Ziploc or something, but it was like pooping into a full blown, you know, giant. So
you're afraid you have to be pretty precise with your
oh gosh
skills.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, good aimer.
So you don't have to be a real good aimer, it turns out, but it was the most beautiful place. I took a photo. I snapped a shot while I was squatting because it's like, wow, I'm not going to ever poop in a better spot than this right now. But the funny thing was, it sort of hit me all of a sudden. We were descending Whitney. We were coming down, but we weren't to trail pass yet. And so, you know, there's some zigzag, there's some, and there's a lot of traffic. And so, you know, I was like, whoop, I got to go. And so I just kind of like jaunted up, you know, to try to find a rock. And I think I find myself a spot. I look over and there's somebody walking across, you know, not 10 feet from me on the trail, like, ah.
With the switchbacks.
Yeah. Like, oh, so really good. So, you know, I ran up, you know, darting, you know, sprinting up Mount Whitney because I've really got an emergency here. And I think I don't know, I feel like it was like 3 different sprints up and up and up before I got to a spot where I didn't look over and see a person have a really good view. Did my job, took a photo.
Carried it to Muir Trail Ranch.
And yeah, we actually only in our whole time out there, we crossed paths with a ranger one time. It was at that just south of Forester Pass where we were camped, and we were kind of talking to him about, I don't know, apparently about poop. Somehow our toilet paper bags were sitting out, and I had duct taped the exterior so they looked, you know, you weren't looking at, you know, ugly looking things. And we asked him specifically about, so what's, because there wasn't a place to put it, you know, so we carried that.
Like,
you know,
what are you supposed to do with your wag bag once you're done with it?
Like, we carried that 5-pounder, you know, that was, you know, yeah,
for 75 miles or however long it was.
75 miles.
Yeah. Technical question, because it was once part of you, is it considered extra weight or not?
I feel like it was really heavy.
It was a relief to get rid of it. Let's put it that way.
Well, you know, you're right. We do talk about bodily functions a lot on the trail, and in keeping with that, I'll share a story as well where you ran into the emergency. There is a campsite up there just below the Mount Whitney trail sign. You know where it says 1.9 miles to Mount Whitney?
Yep.
So there's a campsite up there. There's probably enough room for 6 campers, and it's a dry campsite. Obviously, there's no water up there. You have to bring your own water up. But my son and I, when we did the southern half of the JMT, we kind of sprinted up, sprint. It wasn't really a sprint. We kind of hustled up there as best we could to secure a campsite at that location we had heard about, and we're lucky enough to get up there and get a space. But let me tell you, the next morning, as everybody is doing the trek up for the sunrise summit of Mount Whitney, you get up in the morning, you got to go number 1. There's no place to hide there. There's not a lot of place for privacy. So that was a little bit awkward as everybody is trudging by and you're trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do here? So,
well, I got a rural Iowa trick for you if you'd like.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, here's what you do. I grew up in Iowa drinking beer, you know, as youngsters will do. You would just pull over on the side of the road. And rather than look like you're peeing at the side of the road, which there's no disguising that. If somebody's peeing at the side of the road, you know they're peeing at the side of the road. So we would just go clear off away from the car. You just point up at like you're looking at a star, you know, like you're looking at something beautiful, or point off in the distance and just pee. And it just looks like you're pointing out something cool in the distance to your friends. And if the car drives by, they're just, hey, what, is there a deer? You know, they're just like looking. It's a great trick.
Another pro tip. That's 2 pro tips already. Fantastic.
You're welcome. Worth what you paid for them.
That's right. Very good. I had another story. I lost it though with your pro tip there. You threw me off my game. So
see, so here's the thing. Like, I'm not sure actually how well that works.
It works great.
I feel like it looks ridiculous.
You know what's happening. They're looking for a deer. They're like, whoa, what's over there?
Try it out and report back. Doc.
Okay, we'll do. I think we've all had the moment though where we have picked a place and we have thought that it's a good place, and then we kind of look over our shoulder or you know, and realize, oh, the trail changes direction and it's 10 feet away, like you said. Yeah. Poor guy. We went with a former professional athlete. He was a Major League Baseball pitcher, one time in his career, and he's big strapping guy, 6'4", 6'5". Had a huge pack. We tried to tell him, hey, don't bring all that stuff. You're not going to need all that stuff. Oh no, I'm a big guy. I can handle it. But he ran into altitude sickness one of the first days we were out there, and we were on the side of a trail, and his stomach was upset, and there was nowhere to hide. And there's a lone tree off of the side of the trail that he kind of was behind. And as he's there, there's a mom and her son walking up the trail, and I kind of gave him the alert, and he had to pull himself together real quick and act normal. And then, the mom and the son then decided to walk, 30 feet past us and then take their own break there for 5 or 10 minutes. And meanwhile, he was in complete agony, waiting for them to leave the vicinity.
Oh, no.
Painful.
Oh, yeah.
His trail name became Skids.
Oh, shoot. That'll stick with you.
So you did talk about doing your research ahead of time. Did you find a particular YouTube channel or website that was most helpful or more helpful than the others in preparing for your trip?
I probably did, but none of those really come, like what I sort of continue to follow up and watch right now isn't necessarily just exactly those, I don't suppose. I remember watching this, I probably watched some of the gear videos and that kind of information from Darwin on the Trail, I think is what it is. There's this Bigfoot guy. Actually, it seems like there's probably more than one Bigfoot guy, but it had some info that I got some gear vid intel from that was pretty helpful.
You watched I Can't Hike 55.
Oh yeah,
a few times.
Yeah. What's that guy's name? John. I Can't Hike 55, I think is his name. He uses a lot of hair metal, probably the unpaid for music in his videos, or did there for a while. I haven't watched any of those videos for a while.
I Can't Hike 55. I'll have to check that out.
He's done some pretty cool, nice, well put together videos. What I'm watching right now, and they're putting out sort of episodically, I have sort of two things. One, I really just discovered this past weekend, was this, I don't know, sort of silent, he's calling them silent hikes or something like that, but he's a professional filmmaker, and he's going on these beautiful, well-shot hikes. His name is Craig Adams. I don't know if you've seen any of his stuff, but they're really, really beautiful. Quiet, well shot, just nice ambient music for not talking into the camera constantly while you're walking. That can get kind of old. It works sometimes, but it doesn't always work, and it just kind of depends on the person, the personality, and maybe how well it's shot and stuff. But this guy's making really beautiful films, and then he's been tagging on a little bit of a how-to, or what his trip looked like. So I've been kind of enjoying his stuff. But last year, also 2019, the Hetch brothers, Drain the Hetch. There are these three crazy pot smoking brothers that they've been putting out an episodic thing. I think they've got maybe 16 days worth that are up at this point. It's hilarious, but it's a fresh perspective. So this Craig Adams and the Hetch brothers are complete opposites, but I've been enjoying watching their stuff.
Interesting. I follow an Instagram account called Drain the Hetch. And
yeah, that'd be that.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to check that out. Okay.
Go to YouTube and watch their videos and just start and follow them. It's hilarious.
I mean, they add sound effects. If you trip over a rock, they have a sound effect that's doink, and it's kind of silly.
It does not take itself too seriously, which is kind of nice, because sometimes even an amateur JMT filmmaker is trying to make a great thing, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But these guys have editing skills. It's one of the brothers that seems to be doing mostly editing, and he's talented, but it's goofy.
But they went northbound, and so did we, and we were only off by about a week or so. We figured they took longer than we did, and they went to BVR and we did not. So there were a few differences, and I think they went over Kearsarge Pass to resupply. So we had a few differences, but it was really fun to see. I think we were there. Were we a week before them or after them?
I think we were ahead of them.
I think we were a week ahead of them. we didn't know them, of course, at the time. We don't know them now, but you know, it's kind of fun to be like, yes, I was that exact same place and it looked exactly like that. It was, you know, it feels like we're hiking the trail again a little bit.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to get a little bit into maybe some uh-oh moments on the trail, some gear do's and don'ts, and talk about trail food and what are the trail food options when you are you have a gluten allergy. So stay tuned for that. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're talking to Cheers and Coconut about their 2019 JMT hike and Cheers's book, Elevation Gain. And we want to talk a little bit about maybe some uh-oh moments on the trail. Did you have any moments on the trail where you thought, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? How much is it going to cost to fly me out of here or get on a mule train? Or were there any scary moments where there was an injury or almost an injury or something like that?
I don't think we had any, like, I never had a moment where I'm like, oh, what am I doing here? This was a terrible idea. I never felt like that at all. I had knee pain that I did not plan for. We had one knee brace, which I told Michelle, if you don't carry that, I'm carrying that for you. She's had a couple of knee surgeries. And so you need to take it. And I guess you did carry it because you listened to reason. But I swear I wound up wearing her knee brace more than she did. We traded that thing back and forth, as I say in the book, like a dirty needle. But apart from that, I wouldn't say too much. The only like mishaps I can think of were like signs that were missing that put us off. You know, like at Ray Lakes, there was a sign that was twisted just so, and it said JMT that way. So we went that way, and all of a sudden we were, you know, out towards 60 Lakes. I don't know. We probably went 3/4 of a mile out of our way or something like that. So we had to most of our screw ups were signage related because of people. Nothing mean about the trail itself. Not too much.
When you say because of people, what do you mean by that?
People
moving a sign or stealing a sign.
Well, at Devil's Post Pile, there was actually like a sign that was missing. So we went around Devil's Post Pile, and then we're like, well, we'll just hit the trail up here. And then like we never did. It took forever. I don't know how many miles we went off track at Devil's Post Pile. Yeah. And then eventually we came back around and we're like, oh, that's where the sign was.
Sign right there.
There was a post but no sign.
And there was a post but no sign on it. Yeah, that was annoying.
Yeah, frustrating. I remember both of those parts very vividly from your book, and thinking, oh man, you hate to go down a wrong trail.
Yeah.
But you ran into somebody who made an even bigger mistake than you did on that particular part of the trail by Ray Lakes, where
the Ray Lakes spot. We personally talked to 3 different, ourselves and 2 other groups that had trouble, and one was a group from Australia that they saw that we were looking at the sign and cussing. We had just got back to it, and they said, "Did you go the wrong way?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "We did too. We just lost 6 hours." And I'm like, "Oh man, I'm going to stop whining about the hour and a half I feel like I'm behind, because I bet you they got a flight booked and I don't, you know?" So yeah, that was frustrating, but that's no fault of the trail itself.
Oh, I know a mishap. You will not agree with me, probably, but we, on the way back, we're taking the Amtrak. We didn't buy the ticket yet because we weren't sure exactly, if we were going to be on time or not. So we thought, and we didn't book a hotel because, again, we're like, we don't know when we'll get there. So we got off trail. Yosemite took the, little trail bus to Merced, got our tickets at the Amtrak station. And we had planned, we're like, oh, we'll just stay, kind of hang out at the Amtrak station. That'll be fine. We've been sleeping on the ground. We'll just hang out at the Amtrak station. And the Amtrak station closes, right? We didn't think about that. The Amtrak station closes. So we're like, no, all the hotels nearby are booked. Like there's no hotels nearby. So we went out to eat. We went to like a late night movie, and then we just like basically parked outside of the Amtrak station, kind of a sketchy part of town in Merced. I did not sleep at all. I was just like, there were, yeah, it was,
That was a mishap.
that was not the way I wanted to like end this epic trip, is like, yeah, hanging out overnight, looking like a homeless person at the Amtrak station in a sketchy neighborhood.
To be fair, there was a lot of light there, so it was well lit.
It was well lit.
So
Yeah.
something, I mean, these two homeless people are on display, well lit. But then, you know, you try something, there, you know, probably cameras around too. I figured.
Yeah. Anyway,
So.
no big trail mishaps, thankfully.
I did almost fall on my face though. Talking about trail names, so I didn't have one for a while, and at some point I was like twirling my trekking poles as I pivoted around, like you know,
Little switchback.
switchbacks coming around in a dramatic fashion, and so
Right. Pivot. That's right.
pivot for a little while, which I actually think is a better name than Cheers. But so I was showing off, coming around a switchback, tripped, almost smashed my face on a rock, and she stopped calling me pivot right then and there, and like, stop screwing around. And it really could have been bad.
It was close.
Like, I probably could have broken my arm and or my face.
I think you could have like
I
had
could
a
have
head
broken
injury.
my nose. Yeah, so like I stopped screwing around.
Yeah, that's the one thing I'm really fearful of, is being out on the trail in the middle of nowhere and just some freak mishap and you get injured and trying to figure out, okay, now what?
Yeah. So I stopped doing that.
No more fancy twirls around the.
I would say you're
corners.
only as old as you act, but sometimes you got to act older than that.
Coconuts, if someone had asked you ahead of time, is there more apprehension in sleeping in a well-lit train station or out in the middle of nowhere where there's bears? Would you have predicted that your answer would have been the train station?
No, probably not. No.
I'd rather sleep with the bears.
Yeah, I'd sleep with the bears.
That was
Nice.
a sketch night. Fortunately, it finally got to be like 5 a.m. and we could justify walking about, 0.6 miles to a Starbucks that opened up. And so we drank coffee from 5 a.m. until about 7 when our train left, and then we were
Hobbled.
good.
I was like, I
Hobbled,
want my
definitely.
trekking poles.
Yeah.
Can I use my trekking poles in the city?
We did not take a 0 day, but it was time for one, for sure.
Yeah.
Right. Now, Coconuts, was this your first experience with trekking poles?
You know, we'd use them around here, like mostly like for snowshoeing. Actually, I don't like using trekking poles here in the Midwest where there's not a lot of elevation gain. It just like, they feel like they're just like extra weight and kind of clunky, but I do use them when we go snowshoeing. And there are some, so on the western coast of Iowa, the western edge of Iowa, there's some bluffs called the Les Hills that are really pretty, and you can actually have a little elevation gain, and I actually do like using my trekking poles out there, but most of the time we don't need trekking poles here.
I mean, they help if you got weight on your back. If you're just hiking, day hiking.
Yeah, I mean, we trained with them when we had weight on our backs, but you know, typically in Southwest Iowa, no need for trekking poles unless you're in the.
I have found that with a lot of first-time backpackers that they really are nervous about the way they look with trekking poles, and have kind of an aversion to trekking poles. And I try and explain to them, no, you need the trekking poles. They are a huge help, especially with the altitude changes and, like you said, Cheers, the pack weight.
Yeah, we took a little sort of family, socially distant kind of birthday party backpacking trip with our two boys. One's going to school, one's got his own little family, and we just kind of all met at this place where we like to go. That's got some nice hills out there. Hitchcock Nature Center is what it is. And there's a short little backpacking inn or whatever. And we had gone back to the trailhead just to pick up some extra food or water or something. And I was like, here, try the trekking poles on the way back or whatever.
To the boys,
yeah. And they were like, but they took, and I swear, and I don't remember, one of them had, a bunch of extra junk on his back, and it was back glamping. I mean, it was not a difficult trip by any measure. We had tons of extra stupid stuff, but he had weight on his back, and he took those about, I don't know, a quarter mile down the trail. Whoa, these are great. So, and they, you know,
they became believers.
You know, it's a tool like anything else. You got the right tools and your life is a little easier, and that's a very good tool for the right situation.
Right. Now, coconuts, you are, you can't not have gluten or dairy. Is that correct?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So what kind of challenge did that present in preparing for the trail and food on the trail?
Yeah. So, you know, Jay's a really good cook. Like, he cooked all through college, and we actually had a restaurant for a while. So, he did pretty much like all of the meal prep for us. So we didn't buy like any mountain houses or anything like that. We didn't do any ramen noodles or Slim Jims or Ho-Hos. And I mean, I'm kind of a nutrition nerd too. So we did have like gummy bears. I broke a few of my own rules, but pretty much he did a lot of like just home cooked meals, like really yummy, you know, beans and rice, sometimes like a Moroccan flair with preserved lemons. And so really just all homemade. Like, he made homemade granola with cardamom, which was like so delicious. The cardamom really like popped. So pretty much everything, I mean, not everything was homemade. Like, we had Pro bars for breakfast. So I just had to be a little more conscientious with the selection of, you know, prepackaged things that we did. But our main meals, like in the evening, our one hot meal in the evening was all just homemade things that Jay dehydrated.
Very good. And,
you know, just being really careful with, like, I mean, I did eat at Red's Meadow, you know, burger with no bun and that kind of thing. And it was, you know, most people I think are pretty up to speed on the whole gluten thing. If not, like, I can kind of quickly educate them to feel safe enough. But because he cooked everything ahead of time, and we, you know, carefully, you know, pre-ordered some, you know, nut butters that were good and had some extra nutrition and those things, like, it was not too hard. I mean, because you did the hard work. It was not too hard for me because he did all the hard work.
What was your favorite meal that Jay prepared?
Oh, you know, I think it was, so it's like this, like a Moroccan tagine with rice, and it had like these like preserved lemons in it. So the preserved lemons, like, you know, preserve in salt for a month or more, and they're just like this flavor bomb. And I swear that we had that one below Forester Pass. You
She's trying to
with me.
scrutinize and say that the book is full of errors now.
I think we had it below Forester Pass, but it was delicious.
Sorry about
I mean, everything tastes better on the trail. You know, you're like, this is the best banana chip I've ever had, actually.
Well, you know what? I think, you know, there are some things that I ate on the trail and I ate every day and I cannot look at now just because it was just, I got sick of it. And so I think if you take care of your feet and if you have meals like the ones you just described, coconuts, I think you're in a real good spot on the trail.
Yeah, I feel the same way about banana chips, though. Like, we overdid banana chips.
Banana chips the first probably 3 or 4 days. Yeah.
And did you guys resupply at the traditional resupply points on the trail, or how did that work?
We did MTR and Red's Meadow.
Okay, so just 2 resupplies.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Very good. And how many days did your trip take?
We started at Horseshoe Meadows, and we were 17 days.
Including Horseshoe, like from starting Horseshoe, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we hit Mount Whitney on day 3, and so yeah, we camped at Crabtree Junction on night 2 and night 3, and then we're off and running. So I guess the official JMT was probably like 14 and a half days, but our trip was, you know, 250 miles, roughly 17 days.
Yeah, that's a good duration, making some good time, putting in some miles. What was your longest day, your longest mileage day?
19 and a half or so, I would say, roughly, give or take 1/10 of a mile.
Very good. Now, you guys, I know Jay, in your book, you have 2 appendices. First one about the gear that you guys brought, and then the second one is about recommendations. And in that particular section, you have bargain advice, You have gear that you'd leave behind and gear that you'd bring next time. You want to give us some highlights from those sections? Gear advice?
I don't have a book in front of me. What was there? Things that I would bring that I did not bring was enough ibuprofen. My knee was bothering me, so both of our knees are bothering us. So I needed more ibuprofen. We already talked about the tennis ball thing, or the the yoga tune-up ball. I would definitely bring that on any hike of any length whatsoever. You mentioned bargain advice. I bought a $10 Ice Tech, I think it is, stove off of Amazon, and that thing has been a champ. I don't see any reason to spend $50 or $60 or $70 or $100 on a stove. I mean, I'm sure I can get a lighter stove, but that thing's been really, really reliable. So I'm going to go with my $10 stove. Ice Tech, I think is what it's called. $10 on Amazon. So
nice.
For that.
And you'll send us a picture of that so we can put that on social media for our listeners to take a look at.
Okay. Sure, I can do that.
Might be the most boring picture of the group that we post, but
I can do that.
That is certainly not a million-word picture. That is a
no, that would be a $10 worth of a picture. What did you notice on my gear list that intrigued you? I like the ultras. I like the wide toe boxes. Did you see anything that caught your eye?
No. I just thought it was a very helpful feature for the book to have that kind of awareness to put in the gear list and then put in your recommendations and kind of lessons learned as part of the book.
I actually, I shot a gear video for YouTube before we left, and I really wanted to come back and shoot another video after and just kind of review, okay, here's what I took and here's what I liked and here's what I didn't like. So I think the two appendices in the back of the book are really my sort of shout out to YouTube to help people in the way that YouTube had been helpful to me. So I guess if there was one thing, we talked about the food thing a little bit. Here's a pro tip. This is a pro tip for you. Here's another one. Number 3, free. But I would say, like, get yourself a food dehydrator. Like, it's not hard to cook, you know? You don't have to, like, make rice in just water and have it plain and slightly less nutritious. Like, I have a crock pot and I put turkey bones in there, or beef bones, or chicken bones, or a chicken carcass. And you let that thing rip for like 2 weeks straight and make bone broth that's like deeply nutritious and totally bomb flavorful. Cook your rice in bone broth and then dehydrate that. And, saute some onions and whatever flavoring, throw some curry powder in it, some of it, and some, chili powder and another. But get yourself a food dehydrator. Like this time of year, right? We're recording this early to mid December. Like this is the time when department stores have food dehydrators for $20 as some lame, easy to buy, thoughtless Christmas gift. But buy yourself one of those $20. You plug it in and it turns on, and there's one setting, but it does the thing that it needs to do. It dehydrates rice or beans or whatever. It's great. So there's a pro tip for you. Buy a food dehydrator and use it. It's not hard.
Fantastic. We're up to 3 and we've got one more coming. So I hope you're not tapped dry, but
I'm probably losing them all. Yeah.
All right. Hey, occasionally my listeners know I like to throw in a quick impromptu top 5 list. So I'm going to put you guys on the spot and see if you can come up with the top 5 most beautiful sights from your John Muir trail hike.
Ooh.
We'll start with number 5. Work our way up.
Oh, in order.
Yes.
Oh, in order, huh? This is hard because it's also beautiful.
Well, I already named like 3 places, and those 3 places would be on my top 5.
Okay, what are
they? Just south of Mather, the upper basin where we camped, just south of Forester.
Yeah, highest Tyndall Creek.
That highest Tyndall Creek.
Mm-hmm. Ruby Lake.
We took a nap by Ruby Lake. That was a beautiful napping spot. I think for me, one of my, so I mentioned the day doing Muir Pass was really beautiful. I thought that was that was probably my favorite day of hiking of all. But I really liked Trail Pass to Whitney Summit, that 1.9 miles, you know, just like kind of hopping across the rocks. I was sure Michelle will not agree with that one, but I thought that was really fun hiking. Dangerous and stupid. That was before I nearly fell on my face, but that was really fun. I like that area.
That was also when you were hiking in front.
I was still hiking in front there, yes.
Like a little, I don't know.
Yeah.
Gecko or something.
What else?
I really think, I mean, Lyle Canyon was really pretty. It was really different than any of the other things, you know, further south with the granite, but just the pretty meandering creek through Lyle Canyon was really pretty. I'm not sure if they'd be in my top 5, but I liked that spot. We had like a shorter day, and, you know, we'd hiked the hardest parts. And so it felt like, like I was a lot more relaxed, probably just camping along the creek at Lyle Canyon.
You know, one thing I found interesting, I watched a lot of, like we said, I watched a lot of YouTube videos, and a lot of people are coming sort of traditionally, you go southbound from Yosemite to Mount Whitney, and everybody's like, oh man, each day is more beautiful than last. Well, wait a second, I've never been, prior to this, I'd never been to Yosemite. And I was like, wait a second, I thought Yosemite was supposed to be one of the most beautiful places in the world. And you're saying it gets better each day. How is that possible? This does not compute. We went northbound from Whitney to Yosemite, and I would say the southern half of the JMT was far and away more beautiful, like totally. And so that's not to say that as we hiked northbound, it got uglier as you went. It was beautiful, but like, oh my gosh, that high stuff is just ridiculous for me.
Just unlike other places.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. So I got that, but it was weird.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that that southern half of the John Muir Trail, where the majority of your time is spent over 10,000 feet, there is something really raw and powerful about that. Just that kind of that desolate beauty up there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Totally. Yeah.
All right. Hey, great choices all the way around. Thank you.
Was that 5? Good.
We'll call it 5.
Yeah, I think so. I think we may have exceeded 5, so that's okay. That's good. That's good.
It's our top 20.
Guys, you know where we are right now?
You're putting us on the spot for something that I've probably already done.
Yes, that's right. It's time for the pro tip inside of the week. What do you have for us?
Shouldn't have made that food dehydrator comment. One pro tip is that tennis ball thing. Roll your feet out, you know? I mean, I don't know if I got something extra up my sleeve, but we went on a 42-mile hike in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan up along Lake Superior this summer. The Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore, it's the North Country Trail. We did a stretch of that, and we did take that. And I religiously rolled my feet out every single night, and that was a game changer. I want to do the JMT again and roll my feet out just to see how awesome that is.
Fantastic. Great pro tip. Also, I'm not sure if people picked up that your comment on the socks earlier. You had socks with individual toe slots, right?
Yeah, Injinji toe socks. I like those.
Toe socks. Very good.
I would not consider myself like a toe sock guy before, but they were on sale, and I was trying to figure stuff out. And I was trying to decide. I bought them because they were on sale, and I was thinking that I was going to take some flip-flops as camp shoes. Okay, here's your pro tip. If you're cutting weight and you were like, oh, I'll just leave camp shoes at home, go ahead and take some flip-flops, because if you finish your day with wet feet or something like that, to be able to slip into a pair of flip-flops or sandals or something is pretty daggone luxurious. So I wish I had done that. I did not. But I bought the toe socks thinking that was going to be my plan, so I could take my flip-flops, which I like to wear, but have, you know, warm toes if it's cold at elevation or in the evening. And so, but in experimenting with them, I realized that I like to hike in them too.
I knew you had another pro tip in you.
I did.
All right. Hey, what's next for Cheers and Coconuts? What's the next adventure?
You know, So I'm planning a solo, like my first solo hike this spring down at the Eagle Rock Loop, which actually I heard about that from your podcast. Because that's like 9 hours from where we live. And I thought I've been wanting to do a solo trip. And so I'll be doing that in March. And then we are putting in for permits to do the Grand Canyon, rim to rim to rim in mid-May, if we can get the permits.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I have to tell you my pro tip. Can I tell you my pro tip?
Oh, yes, please. Yeah, don't let Cheers hog all the pro tips.
I'm like super dorky about my pro tip because as a yoga person, and I'm a big reader, I'm kind of like a nerd with sciencey stuff. Like my pro tip is to breathe through your mouth and anybody, not through your mouth, God, not through your mouth, through your nose, cancel that, through your nose. So, and I would say this is, I don't know if you've seen this book, it's called Breath by James Nestor. It's a New York Times best-selling book. I would say, read his book, listen to his podcast, but if you don't want to do that, train and breathe through your nose as much as you can, because you get more oxygen that way. And it's so much better for like all of your functions to breathe through your nose, not your mouth.
Fantastic. Great pro tip there, Coconuts. So there you have it. That's it. Season 2, episode 3 is in the books. I hope our listeners enjoyed our time with Cheers and Coconuts. And I want to thank them for joining us this week. Guys, how can our listeners keep up with you on social media, and where can they find updates on your latest adventures?
Let's see. Instagram, I'm Pablo_Fahrenheit. Twitter, I think it's just Pablo Fahrenheit. If you care about pants, there's a Drinking Pants page on Facebook.
Yeah, and I'm at Radiant Wellness Solutions on Instagram and Facebook.
Fantastic. Remember to check out the pod on social media as well. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you have comments or clips that you want to share, you can send it to me at johnfreakinmuir@gmail.com. Guys, I'm also looking to give our listeners recommendations for a book, movie, documentary, website, YouTube channel that will keep them connected to the outdoor adventures. We're calling this our adventure media recommendation. Any thoughts on that?
Oh my gosh. Well, I really think that the Breath book is good. Okay. Like, it's really great to support your adventure. I really like the other book that I would recommend. It's kind of probably a non-traditional one, but it's by Micah Mortali called Rewilding. And he's this mindful outdoor guide at the Kripalu Center up in the Berkshires. So it's like this kind of melding of like mindfulness and outdoor skills. That's really, it's kind of a unique blend that I'm really enjoying.
Okay, great. And we had media recommendations throughout the podcast, I believe. We had mile and a half. We had Drain the Hetch videos that you talked about on some of the YouTube channels that you watched. So yeah. Very good. Anything else there, Cheers?
I can give you a book. I can give you a couple of books. I mean, I'll just like say Edward Abbey in passing or whatever. You should already do that. Like, you want some like original thru hiker kind of guide from back in the day. I don't know if you guys have heard of Everett Lewis. A lot of us will have. But if you're younger or newer or whatever, I would say check out this book called Vagabond for Beauty by W.L. Rousseau. It's about this young kid named Everett Lewis who disappeared in the, 34, 35 or something like that. He used to tramp out in, Arizona, Utah, some of the places that we all like, to California as well. So I would say something like that's kind of cool. One of the books that I discovered when we were in North Carolina, I was kind of grooving on the AT idea, was Lynn Setzer is her name. And the book was Appalachian Trail, or a season on the Appalachian Trail. That was kind of cool. And I feel like that's maybe kind of a tiny, obscure choice, but like I thought the way that was done was kind of cool. So there would be a couple of them.
Fantastic. I mean, that's what this podcast is all about, is just trying to keep me connected to the outdoors, and any kind of, I'm thirsty for any kind of adventure media out there to just to keep that connection. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
You bet.
All right. That is a wrap from the John Freaking Muir studio. Do you want to give any shout outs to family or friends out there?
Hello, family and friends. I'll give a shout out to Rooster, who was the guy that took us to the trail. We had never hitchhiked before. And so Rooster, he's a science teacher from LA and a fine guy that gave us a ride. So thanks, Rooster.
All right. Great job, Rooster. Hope you're listening.
We'll have to share this with them.
Nice. All right. Thank you for tuning in. And always remember, the trail is the trail. It doesn't care if you want to go downhill. It doesn't care if it's almost dark and you're looking for a campsite. The trail is the trail. Embrace the suck.